Yeah, we're doing a study on that right now. But there are large areas where you don't need a wall because you have a mountain and you have a river, and you have a violent river, and you don't need it. Okay?
Senator, how do you come visit you this week?
It seems to me, I'm not the most politically astute person in the world, but it seems to me not much has actually changed here in terms of your positions.
No, I think it's changed. I think my positions are going to be what the people in this room come up with. I am very much reliant on the people in this room. I know most of the people on both sides. I have a lot of respect for the people on both sides. And what I approve is going to be very much reliant on what the people in this room come to me with. I have great confidence in the people. If they come to me with things that I'm not in love with, I'm going to do it because I respect them. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, can you beat Oprah, by the way?
Yeah, I'll beat Oprah. Oprah would be a lot of fun. I know her very well. You know, I did one of her last shows. She had Donald Trump, this is before politics, her last week. And she had Donald Trump, and my family was very nice. No, I like Oprah. I don't think she's going to run.
But you can beat her.
I don't think she's going to run.
Right.
I know her very well.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Well, let's wait about that for the press release.
Yeah, it's phase two. I think comprehensive will be phase two. I really agree with Dick. I think we get the one thing done, and then we go into comprehensive the following day. I think it'll happen.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Tim.
Yes. Well, wait, we'll
Let's
start.
wait 1 second.
Thank you all very much. I hope we gave you enough material. This should cover you for about 2 weeks. Come on. We have Sarah. We have Sarah.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for being here.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for being here. I'm thrilled to be with a distinguished group of Republican and Democratic lawmakers from both the House and the Senate. We have something in common. We'd like to see this get done, and you know what this means. We're here today to advance bipartisan immigration reform that serves the needs of the American families, workers, and taxpayers. It's DACA. We've been talking about DACA for a long time. I've been hearing about it for years, long before I decided to go into this particular line of work. And maybe we can do something. We have a lot of good people in this room, a lot of people that have a great spirit for taking care of people we represent, we all represent. For that reason, any legislation on DACA, we feel, at least a strong part of this group feels, has to accomplish 3 vital goals. And Chairman Goodlatte will be submitting a bill over the next 2 to 3 days that will cover many of the things. And obviously that will, if it gets passed, it'll go to the Senate and they can negotiate and we'll see how it all turns out. But I feel having the Democrats in with us is absolutely vital because this should be a bipartisan bill. This should be a bill of love. Truly, it should be a bill of love, and we can do that. But it also has to be a bill where we're able to secure our border. Drugs are pouring into our country at a record pace. A lot of people are coming in that we can't have. We've greatly stiffened, as you know, and fewer people are trying to come in, but we have tremendous numbers of people and drugs pouring into our country. So in order to secure it, we need a wall. We need closing enforcement. We have to close enforcement loopholes, give immigration officers, and these are tremendous people, the border security agents, the ICE agents, we have to give them the equipment they need. We have to close loopholes. And this really does include a very strong amount of different things for border security. I think everybody in the room would agree to that. I think that it's a question of amounts, but I think everyone agrees we have to have border security. I don't think there'd be anybody that says no. Second, it has to be a bill to end chain migration. Chain migration is bringing in many, many people with one, and often it doesn't work out very well. Those many people are not doing us right. And I think a lot of people in the room, and I'm not sure I can speak for everybody, but a lot of the people in this room want to see chain migration ended. And we have a recent case along the West Side Highway having to do with chain migration, where a man ran over, killed 8 people, and many people injured badly, loss of arms, loss of legs. A horrible thing happened. And then you look at the chain and all the people that came in because of him. Terrible situation. And the other is to cancel the lottery program. They call it visa lottery. I just call it lottery, where countries come in and they put names in a hopper. They're not giving you their best names. Common sense means they're not giving you their best names. They're giving you people that they don't want. And then we take them out of the lottery. And where they do it by hand, where they put the hand in a bowl, what's in their hand are the worst of the worst. But they put people that they don't want into a lottery, and the United States takes those people. And again, going back to that same person, he came in through the lottery program. They visited his neighborhood, and the people in the neighborhood said, oh my God, we suffered with this man, the rudeness, the horrible way he treated us right from the beginning. So we don't want the lottery system or the visa lottery system. We want it ended. So those 3 things are paramount. These are measures that will make our community safer and more prosperous. These reforms are supported by the overwhelming majority of Americans from every standpoint, from every poll, and they're being requested by law enforcement officers. I had a big meeting with ICE last week. I had a big meeting with the Border Patrol agents last week. Nobody knows it better than them. As an example on the wall, they say, sir, we desperately need the wall. And we don't need a 2,000-mile wall. We don't need a wall where you have rivers and mountains and everything else protecting. But we do need a wall for a fairly good portion. We also, as you know, it was passed in 2006, essentially similar thing, a fence, a very substantial fence was passed, but unfortunately, I don't know, they never got it done, but they need it. So I'm appealing to everyone in the room to put the country before a party and to sit down and negotiate and to compromise, and let's see if we can get something done. I really think, Dick, that we have a chance to do it. I think it's very important. You're talking about 800,000 people, and you're talking about lots of other people are also affected, including people that live in our country. That's from the security standpoint. So maybe the press can stay for a little while, and a couple of folks can make statements, and I don't mind the statements. We want to have this as a very open forum. I will say, though, that I really do believe Democrat and Republican, the people sitting around this table, want to get something done in good faith, and I think we're on our way to do it. This was an idea I had last week. I was sitting with some of our great Republican senators, and we all agreed on everything. It was a great meeting, right, David, right? We had a great meeting, Tom. It was perfect. Then I said, yeah, but we'd like to get some Democrat support. What do they say? And I say, let's have the same meeting, but let's add the Democrats. And that's what we've done. And I think we're going to come up with an answer. I hope we're going to come up with an answer for DACA, and then we go further than that later on down the road. Dick, perhaps you'd like to say a few words?
Well, thanks, Mr. President, for inviting us. We're all honored to be part of this conversation. September the 5th, you challenged us. You challenged Congress. You said we're going to end DACA, now replace it. As of today, we've not done that. We face a deadline of March 5th, which you created with your elimination of DACA. And we know that in the meantime, there have been efforts underway. Senator Graham and I sat down with a bipartisan group of senators. We have worked long and hard. Many hours have been put into it. And we feel that we can put together a combination of the future of DACA as well as border security. That there are elements you're going to find Democrats support when it comes to border security. We want a safe border in America, period. Both when it comes to the issues of illegal migration, but also when it comes to drugs and all these other areas. Now, I will say that there is a sense of urgency that's felt by many of us when it comes to this issue. There are many of these young people who are losing the protection of DACA on a daily basis. As of March 5th, 1,000 a day will lose DACA protection. 900 of them are members of the U.S. military. 20,000 of them are school teachers. In my state of Illinois and city of Chicago, there are 25 of them in medical school who can't apply for a residency if they lose their DACA status. So lives are hanging in the balance of our getting the job done. We've got the time to do it. In a matter of days, literally of days, we can come together and reach an agreement. And when that happens, I think good things will happen in other places, and we'll see some real progress here in Washington.
I agree with that, Dick. I very much agree with that. Tom, would you like to say something? Tom Cotton.
Thank you for inviting us all here, and I'm glad to be here with Democrats and with House members as well. I think on this issue, there's a lack of trust, and has been for many years. Lack of trust between Republicans and Democrats, a lack of trust among Republicans, most fundamentally a lack of trust between the American people and our elected leaders on not delivering a solution for many, many years about some of these problems. And I hope that this meeting can be the beginning of building trust between our parties, between the chambers, because I know for a fact all the Republicans around the table are committed to finding a solution, and I believe all the Democrats are as well. So I think this is a good first step in building the trust we need for a good bill, Mr. President, that will achieve the objectives that you stated, providing legal protection for the DACA population while also securing our border and ending chain migration and diversity lottery. Thank you for the invitation.
Mr. President, thank you very much for having us down here. I agree with Tom Cotton that the American public are very frustrated with us. One of the reasons they're frustrated with us because we continue to couple things on which we have large agreement with things on which we do not agree. This is a perfect example of that. 86% of the American people in the most recent poll are for ensuring, as you have said, not providing for DACA-protected kids to go to a place that they don't know, they didn't grow up in, and it's not their home. They're Americans. They don't have a piece of paper that says they're Americans, but they're Americans. And it seems to me, Mr. President, if we're going to move ahead in a constructive way, that we take that on which we agree, pass it. The American public will be pleased with all of us if we do that. Just as in September, you recall, we did the extension of a CR, no drama. We were all for it. The four leaders met, we came to an agreement, and we passed that CR. In my view, we can pass the protection in the, what I understand your position is, procedurally it was not done correctly. You then, as Dick has said, challenged us, pass it correctly. If it's put on the floor, Mr. President, I believe it will have the overwhelming majority in both the House, and Senator Graham thinks it will have a substantial majority in the United States Senate as well. That, I think, is the first step, Tom, to creating some degree of confidence. Democrats are for security at the borders. I want to state that emphatically. There's not a Democrat that is not for having secure borders. There are obviously differences, however, Mr. President, on how you affect that. You just indicated that yourself. And you indicated this would be a first step, and then we continue to talk, as we're talking today, about how we best secure the border. There are differences of opinion within your party and within our party. So I would urge that we move forward on protecting the DACA protected individuals. Young people, young adults, as you pointed out in one of your statements, who are productive parts of our community, that we protect them and get that done. And then, because I think everybody around the table, as you pointed out, is for security, and then the issue is going to be how do we best affect that border security. So I would urge us to move, as Senator Durbin has urged us to move, on the DACA students. As a matter of fact, the Speaker, I think today, but maybe yesterday, said we need to solve the DACA issue, and we need to solve it in a way that is permanent, not temporary. And I agree with him on that issue.
And interestingly, when you say that, President Obama, when he signed the executive order, actually said he doesn't have the right to do this. And so you do have to go through Congress, and you do have to make it permanent. Whether he does, whether he doesn't, let's assume he doesn't. You said it. and that was a temporary stopgap. I don't think we want that. I think we want to have a permanent solution to this, and I think everybody in this room feels that way and very strongly.
What happened, Mr. President, I think, is that the Senate passed a comprehensive immigration bill, as you know. We did not consider it in the House, so we didn't reach those issues. Very frankly, on border security, Mr. McCall, the chairman of the committee, reported out a unanimous security solution, which we then included in the bill that we filed on comprehensive immigration reform. So I think we can reach agreement.
Well, I also think that after we do DACA, and I really believe we should be able to be successful, I really think we should look in terms of your permanent solution and to the whole situation with immigration. I think a lot of people in this room would agree to that also, but we'll do it in steps, and most people agree with that, I think, Dick. We'll do it in steps. Even you say, let's do this, and then we go phase two. Kevin, what would you like to say?
Well, first, I want to thank you for bringing everybody together. You got the Senate, you got the House, you got both parties. And I like the exchange of ideas. And I think everybody has a point here. The one thing I don't want to have happen here is what I saw in the past. There were former bills that were passed on border security years ago that never got finished. There were immigration bills passed that were right back at the table with the same problem. Let's make a commitment to each one, and most importantly to the American people, that when we get done and come to an agreement, that we're not back at this problem 3-4 years from now. That's why, yes, we've got to do DACA, and I agree with you 100%. But if we do not do something with the security, if we do not do something with the chain migration, we are fooling each other that we solved a problem. You know how difficult this issue is. So let's collectively, we're here at the table together. I'll be the first one to tell you we're all going to have to give a little, and I'll be the first one willing to. But let's solve the problem, but let's not tell the American public at the end that it's solved when it's not.
Well, I think a good starting point would be Bob Goodlatte, who has done a bill, and I understand you're ready to submit it, and you're going to take that and you'll submit, and they'll negotiate in Congress and the House, and then it goes to the Senate, and they'll negotiate, both Republican and Democrat, but it could be a good way of starting. Now, if anyone has an idea different from that, but I think starting in the House might be good. You're ready? I think you're ready to go.
We are.
I would like to add the words merit into any bill that's submitted, because I think we should have merit-based immigration like they have in Canada, like they have in Australia. So we have people coming in that have a great track record as opposed to what we're doing now, to be honest with you. But I think merit-based should be absolutely added to any bill, even if it has to do with DACA. That would be added to the things I said. I think it would be popular. I think I can tell you the American public very much wants that. But Bob, where are you with the bill?
So tomorrow, Chairman McCall and Congressman McSally and Congressman Labrador, we're the chairman of the two committees and the chairman of the two subcommittees, are going to introduce a bill that addresses the DACA concerns. And let me thank you, Mr. President, both. I was an immigration lawyer before I was elected to Congress. I want to thank you both for campaigning on securing our borders and the interior of our country, but also on addressing DACA in a way that makes sense. Don't do it ad hoc. Do it through the congressional process. So you've challenged us, and we should step up to that challenge. And we're going to do it in a bipartisan fashion, but we have to put our best foot forward, and we're going to do that with this legislation. It's going to address DACA in a permanent way, not a temporary short-term thing. We're going to address the border enforcement and security and the wall. We're going to address, in Mr. McCall's bill, we're going to address interior enforcement, but not everything that the administration had on its list. We're going to address chain migration. We're going to end the visa lottery program. We're going to address sanctuary cities and Kate's Law. We think it is a good bill that will both address the two things our speaker told us right after you made your decision, which is we have to address the problem we have with the DACA kids being in limbo, as Dick Durbin described it, and I agree with that. But we also have to make sure this does not happen again.
And Dick, you're, and the Democrats are going to have a lot of things that they're not going to agree. You're going to talk to us about it. I just felt that this is something, it was long overdue. You'd have a meeting and you'd say, this is what we want. You would have a meeting, and this has been going on for years. And I just, at a certain point, maybe I'll just lock the doors and I won't let anybody out until they come and agree. Michael, do you have something to say about the bill?
Yeah, I've been in Congress for 7 terms. I've been trying to get this border secure for 7 terms in Congress. I think this is a bipartisan issue. I think DACA is a bipartisan issue. We have an opportunity, I think, before us to get this done for the American people. When it comes to chain migration and the lottery system, we saw 2 recent terror attacks in New York that were the result of this, I think, failed immigration policy. We'd like to see that fixed for the American people, along with, as Bob talked about, the sanctuary cities. You and I have talked about this extensively. So we think our bill, our House bill, will be a good starting ground for this negotiation. And I, too, want to commend you for bringing everybody together. I think what we don't want to see happen is for the conditions for DACA to occur again. We want to get security done so we don't have to deal with this problem 5 more years down the road. So thank you, sir, for
Well, there are so many points of agreement, and a lot of it's common sense, and I really think we're going to come out very well. David Perdue, do you have something to say?
Well, yeah, my observation is that 3 times in the last 11 years, well-intentioned people, some of whom are in this room, attempted to do what we're starting to try to do today, and we failed. And I think the difference is their mission creep ended up in an effort that became too comprehensive. And so today, my encouragement for all of us is to do what Dick has been trying to do and talks about repeatedly, and that is to limit the scope of this. And I like the idea that both sides have pressure to solve the DACA issue. But I think the bigger issue here is not just the DACA issue, but what can we do to start the path to the steps that solve this immigration problem? For several reasons. There are social issues, there are political issues, there are economic issues about our workforce that have to be addressed. But limiting this to the legal immigration side and combining the balance between various solutions on DACA, Dreamers if that gets in the conversation, as well as border security and chain migration. I think therein lies the balance of a good deal that can be done. And I agree with Dick. I don't think it's going to take long to get it done if we just locked ourselves in a room and made it happen.
I think you're right. I think it can be done very quickly. Would anybody have anything to say prior to the press leaving? Anybody?
Mr. President, I just have one comment. Senator Durbin mentioned that lives are hanging in the balance. As we come up on the January 19th deadline, the lives that are hanging in the balance are those of our military that are needing the equipment and the funding and everything they need in order to keep us safe. And we should not be playing politics on this issue to stop our military from getting the funding that they need. I think we have the right people in the room to solve this issue. The deadline is March 5th. Let's roll up our sleeves and work together on this. But those who need us right now, before the January 19th deadline, is our military. And let's not play politics with that. Let's give them what they need to keep us safe.
Okay, good. I think a lot of people would agree with that. We need our military. I can't say more than ever before. We had wars, right, Lindsay? We had a lot of other areas and times, but we need our military desperately. Our military has been very depleted. We're rebuilding, and we're building it up quickly, and we're negotiating much better deals with your purveyors and with your manufacturers and with your equipment makers, much better than it was before. I look at boats that started off at $1.5 billion, and they're up to $18 billion, and they're still not finished. In this case, a particular aircraft carrier, I think it's outrageous. So we're very much agreeing with you on that, Martha. Would anybody like to say? Yes, Denny, go ahead.
I want to follow up on that. There are no Democrats that don't want to make sure that the military is funded properly. And over the last 4 years, we had an agreement between Mr. Ryan and Senator Murray, Speaker Ryan, that we understand that our military is critically important, but we also understand that our domestic issues, whether it's education, whether it's healthcare, whether it's the environment, whether it's transportation and infrastructure, they're important as well. And both the defense and non-defense sides of the budget are hurt when you have a CR, because they cannot plan. And they cannot let contracts if they don't have any money to do so. So that, very frankly, I think Ms. McSally is correct. But what we ought to have done over the last 6 months, particularly when we did the September, and we gave 90 days, is to reach some agreement on what the caps are going to be. The Murray-Ryan agreements were parity. We believe that's very important. So we can get to where we should get and want to get there. But we ought to have an agreement based upon what the last two
But
times.
Stenny, we
when
do
had
have to
agreement.
take politics out of the military. We need that military. You know, all the other things we talk about, we're not going to be here if we don't have the right military. And we need our military, and we need it stronger than ever before, and we're ready to do it. But we have to take politics out of the military. One thing that I think we can really get along with on a bipartisan basis, and maybe I'm stronger in this than a lot of the people on the Republican side, but I will tell you, we have great support from the Republicans, is infrastructure. I think we can do a great infrastructure bill. I think we're going to have a lot of support from both sides, and I'd like to get it done as quickly as possible. Yes, John?
Mr. President, I too want to thank you for getting us together. You made the point last week when Republicans were meeting with you that why are we continuing to have these meetings just among ourselves when what we need to do to get to a solution is to meet as we are today, as you insisted, on a bipartisan basis. But part of my job is to count votes in the Senate. And as you know, we hosted the leadership at Camp David this weekend. I believe both the Speaker and Majority Leader McConnell made crystal clear that they would not proceed with a bill on the floor of the Senate or the House unless it had your support, unless you would sign it. So that's, I think, the picture that we need to be looking through, the lens we need to be looking through is not only what can we agree to among ourselves on a bipartisan basis, but what will you sign into law? Because we all want to get to a solution here, and we realize the clock is ticking. But I think that, for me, frames the issue about as well as I can.
Thank you. Very well said. And, you know, one of the reasons I'm here, Chuck, so importantly, is exactly that. I mean, normally you wouldn't have a president coming to this meeting. Normally, frankly, you'd have Democrats, Republicans, and maybe nothing would get done. You know, our system lends itself to not getting things done. And I hear so much about earmarks, the old earmark system, how there was a great friendliness when you had earmarks. But of course, they had other problems with earmarks. But maybe all of you should start thinking about going back to a form of earmarks, because this system, no, well, you should do it. And I'm there with you, because this system really lends itself to not getting along. It lends itself to hostility and anger, and they hate the Republicans and they hate the Democrats. And, you know, in the old days of earmarks, you can say what you want about certain presidents and others, where they all talk about they went out to dinner at night and they all got along and they passed bills. That was an earmark system. And maybe we should think about it, and we have to put better controls because it got a little bit out of hand, but maybe that brings people together. Because our system right now, the way it's set up, will never bring people together. Now, I think we're going to get this done, DACA. I hope we're going to get infrastructure done in the same way. But I think you should look at a form of earmarks. I see Lindsay nodding very happily, yes. But a lot of the pros are saying that if you want to get along and if you want to get this country really rolling again, you have to look at a different form, because this is obviously out of control. The levels of hatred, and I'm not talking about Trump, I'm talking you go back throughout the 8 years of Obama, and you go before that, the animosity and the hatred between Republicans and Democrats. I mean, I remember when I used to go out in Washington and I'd see Democrats having dinner with Republicans and they were best friends and everybody got along. You don't see that too much anymore. I hate, no due respect. You really don't see that. When was the last time you took a Republican out? Why didn't you guys go out and have dinner tonight? But you don't see it. So maybe, and very importantly, totally different from this meeting, because we're going to get DACA done. I hope we're going to get DACA done, and we're going to all try very hard. But maybe you should start bringing back a concept of earmarks. It's going to bring you together. You're going to do it honestly. You're going to get rid of the problems that the other system had, and it did have some problems. But one thing it did is it brought everyone together. And this country has to be brought together. Okay? Thank you. Yes, Lindsay?
Well, at 6:40, I'm going to go to Menendez's office, and he's taking me to dinner.
Wow.
And he's buying.
Sounds like fun.
And he didn't know that, but he's buying. We're going to Morton. You're all welcome to come.
No, I think
we can usually get bipartisan agreement when the other guy buys.
I think it's a very important thing, because our system is designed right now that everybody should hate each other. And we can't have that. You know, we have a great country. We have a country that's doing very well. In many respects, we're just hitting a new high on the stock market again, and that means jobs. I look at the stock. I don't look at the stocks. I look at the jobs. I look at the 401ks. I look at what's happening, where police come up to me and they say, "Thank you. You're making me look like a financial genius," literally, meaning about them, and their wives never thought that was possible, right? No, the country is doing well in so many ways, but there's such divisiveness, such division, and I really believe we can solve that. I think this system is a very bad system in terms of getting together, and I'm going to leave it up to you, but I really believe you can do something to bring it together.
Other than going to dinner with Bob, I've been doing this for 10 years. I don't think I've seen a better chance to get it done than I do right now, because of you. John's right. I'm not going to support a bill if you don't support it. I've had my head beat out a bunch. I'm still standing. I'm Lindsey Gramnesty, Lindsey Gomez, you name every name you want to give to me, it's been assigned to me. And I'm still standing. The people of South Carolina want a result. How could I get elected? I've been for a pathway to citizenship for 11 million people because I have no animosity toward them. I don't want crooks. I don't want bad hombres. I want to get a merit-based immigration system to make sure we can succeed in the 21st century. I'm willing to be more than fair to the 11 million. I just don't want to do this every 20 years. Now, we made the decision, Mr. President, not to do it comprehensively. I think that's a smart decision, but a hard decision. We've passed 3 comprehensive bills out of the Senate with over 65 votes. They go to the House and die, and I'm not being disparaging to my House colleagues. This is tough politics if you're a Republican House member turning on the radio. To my Democratic friends, thanks for coming. The Resist movement hates this guy. They don't want him to be successful at all. You turn on Fox News, and I can hear the drumbeat coming. Right-wing radio and TV talk show hosts are going to beat the crap out of us because it's going to be amnesty all over again. I don't know if the Republican and Democratic Party can define love, but I think what we can do is do what the American people want us to do. 62% of the Trump voters support a pathway to citizenship for the DACA kids if you have strong borders. You have created an opportunity here, Mr. President, and you need to close the deal.
Thank you, Lindsay. You know, it's very interesting because I do have people that are, let's just to use a very common term, very far right and very far left. They're very unhappy about what we're doing, but I really don't believe they have to be because I really think this sells itself. And you know, when you talk about comprehensive immigration reform, which is where I would like to get to eventually, if we do the right bill here, we are not very far away. You know, we've done most of it. If you want to know the truth, Dick, if we do this properly, DACA, you're not so far away from comprehensive immigration reform. And if you want to take it that further step, I'll take the heat. I don't care. I don't care. I'll take all the heat you want to give me. And I'll take the heat off both the Democrats and the Republicans. My whole life has been heat. I like heat in a certain way. But I will. I mean, you are somewhat more traditional politicians than me. 2.5 years ago, I was never thinking in terms of politics. Now I'm a politician. You people have been doing it, many of you, all your lives. I'll take all the heat you want. But you are not that far away from comprehensive immigration reform. And if you wanted to go that final step, I think you should do it. And if you want to study earmarks to bring us all together so we all get together and do something, I think you should study it. Chuck, did you have something to say?
I'd like to talk about the reality of the whole situation and take off from what Cornyn and Graham have said of the necessity of you working with us, and you're doing that by having this meeting and other meetings as well. But we've always talked in the United States Senate about the necessity of getting 60 votes, and that's pretty darn tough. But if we would write a bill that you don't like and you veto it, we're talking about a 67 vote threshold, 2/3 in the United States Senate. So that's the reality of negotiating in good faith and getting something you can sign. The second reality is the March 5th date that's coming up, because if we don't do some good faith negotiation and make progress and get a bill on the floor of the United States Senate, our leader is going to have to bring up either the House bill or the bill that some of us has introduced in the United States Senate, and we're going to have a vote on it. And those people that don't want to vote to legalize DACA kids are going to have to explain why that they haven't wanted to protect the vulnerable people that we're all here talking about. We're talking about everything except doing something for the DACA kids. You know, I would vote for a path to citizenship, which isn't very easy for me, but I would do it just as an effort. But there's certain things that we got to guarantee that we're going to do.
That's going to be brought up. I really believe that will be brought up as part of what we're talking about at some point. It's an incentive for people to do a good job, if you want to know the truth. That whole path is an incentive for people, and they're not all kids. I mean, you know, we used to talk about kids. They're not really kids. You have them 39, 40 years old in some cases. But it would be an incentive for people to work hard, do a good job. So, you know, that could very well be brought up, the
Talking
path.
about legalizing people here that didn't break the law because their parents who broke the law brought them here. And we ought to be talking about what we can do for the people that had no fault of their own and get the job done and not worry about a lot of other things that we're involved in. And that means that we got to make sure that we tell the American people when we're taking this step that we're doing something that all the people agree to, you know.
Mr. President, let me just say, I think Dick and I agree with what Chuck Grassley just said.
It's hard to believe. When was the last time that happened, Jeff?
We need to take care of these DACA kids, and we all agree on that. 86% of the American public agrees on that. With all due respect, Bob and Mike and Lindsay, there are some things that you're proposing that are going to be very controversial and will be an impediment to agreement.
But you're going to negotiate those things. You're going to sit down, you're going to say, listen, we can't agree here, we'll give you half of that, you're going to negotiate those
President,
things.
comprehensive means comprehensive.
No, we're not talking about comprehensive. Now we're talking about.
No, we are talking about comprehensive.
If you want to go there, it's okay, because you're not that far away.
Mr. President, many of the things that are mentioned ought to be a part of the negotiations regarding comprehensive immigration reform.
If you want to take it a step further, you may, I'm going to have to rely on you,
I
Dick.
think what you
You
said at the
may
out-
complicate it, and you may delay DACA somewhat.
I don't want to do that. You
know?
said at the
You can't
outset
do it.
we need to phase this. I think the first phase is what Chuck and Stenny and I have mentioned, others as well. We have a deadline looming and a lot of lives hanging. We can agree on some very fundamental and important things together on border security, on chain, on the future of diversity visas. Comprehensive, though, I worked on it for 6 months with Michael Bennett and a number of Bob Menendez and Schumer and McCain and Jeff Flake, and it took us 6 months to put it together. We don't have 6 months for the DACA.
We're not talking about comprehensive. Take a look at our bill, Ms.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned a number of factors that are going to be controversial, as Stenny has mentioned.
But you're going to negotiate. Dick, you're going to negotiate. And maybe we'll agree and maybe we won't. I mean, you know, it's possible we're not going to agree with you and it's possible we are, but there should be no reason for us not to get this done. And Chuck, I will say, when this group comes back, hopefully with an agreement, this group and others from the Senate, from the House, comes back with an agreement, I'm signing it. I mean, I will be signing it. I'm not going to say, oh, gee, I want this or I want that. I'll be signing it because I have a lot of confidence in the people in this room that you're going to come out with something really good. Senator, would you like to say something? Diane?
I would. As you know, we tried for comprehensive immigration reform in the Senate.
Around the table. Now, it will not surprise anybody that there were differences of opinion after that, as
Is there room to give?
Leader Durbin pointed out. Much of what we had to say in there was on television, and you were in the room. But the urgency of this issue is, I think, critical. And that is why I intend to go back to the Hill today, start working on seeing whether or not there is a path where we can get agreement. But when you have all the members of the Senate that were in the room, Democratic and Republican, and all the House members agreeing that we had to solve the problem of these young people who are at risk, of which Senator Durbin spoke.
Is he going to hold the wall over their head I mean, that's the...
Now, Quilly, as you saw in the meeting, there was a discussion by the President and by others of border security. Democrats are for border security. Let me make that very plain. We are for border security. And we are prepared to work with the President on border security, which means many things to many people, and maybe different things to different people, so that they will require work to get that done.
Congressman Hoyer, are you for $18 billion in the DACA deal, yes or no?
No. The fact
Is that the basis of the deal as it's currently before you?
That's why I emphasize border security. The president emphasized, as a matter of fact, that the wall meant different things to different people, and he mentioned fences, he mentioned technology, he mentioned other things, so that it was clear in the meeting that wall did not mean some structure. Well, I understand that, but there was no agreement on that, and we're going to be working on that.
Is that a deal breaker for
I asked
Democrats?
directly if the wall was a must-do, if the wall must be part of a DACA deal, and the president said yes.
Yeah,
Are
I
you
think.
open to a deal that includes at least part of the wall?
Let me tell you what I think. I think the president uses wall for border security. I think he thinks they're interchangeable because he mentioned border security on a number of occasions in talking about what was necessary to be in the DACA bill.
What's your bottom line? What's your bottom line? Are you open to any wall funding? Are you open to any wall funding as part
Senator
of the
Durbin,
deal?
can I ask you a
What's your
question, sir?
bottom line?
Senator Durbin?
Well,
Senator
can
Durbin,
we?
can I ask you a question, sir?
I'd really like to ask
Senator
Senator
Durbin?
Durbin. Senator, you grew up on the border. You know Laredo. You know the border. You know the Del Rio portion of Texas. You know you can't build a wall over the Big Bend area. So what's your thoughts about coming out of there? Is it realistic to think that you're going to build a wall when it can't be built?
Look, a wall is a 14th century solution to a 21st century issue that we have. For us that live there, there's a lot of issues. You got to look at the domain, which is one thing. The other thing is there's people that have, most of that land in Texas is private property rights. In 2007, 2008, 2009, there were 360 cases that were filed, the eminent domain cases. 90 of them are still pending right now. You know what's going to happen in Texas? And a lot of them, and I've talked to a lot of the landowners, they're big Republican landowners. They've already talked to me. They said, we're going to fight the president on this. So we got to understand that this is going to take a long time, number one. Number thing is, look at the latest GAO report. From 2010 to 2015, the wall, or the fences that we have right now, was breached over 9,300 times. If you talk to the Border Patrol chief, and I don't mean to get him in trouble, but even the past ones, I asked him in Appropriations Homeland, I said, how much time would a wall buy you? This is what he said, quote, a few minutes or even a few seconds. So we're going to spend billions of dollars on a few minutes or a few seconds to do that. So that's the other thing is, finally I want to just finish with this because I want to let our chair say a few words, and Bob over here also, is this. Listen, we keep playing defense, and this is what we told the president, defense on, it's called the 1 yard line. And he saw that football game last night. It was pretty exciting last night. But if you play defense called the U.S.-Mexico border, where we spend $18 billion a year on border security, doesn't it make more sense that we play defense on their 20-yard line, working with Mexico, Central America? Did you know also that Mexico, by working with them on the southern border with Guatemala, at one time they were stopping more people than the Border Patrol issues that we have. Finally, the last thing. We're not facing the issues that Border Patrol, and I sit down with them, I spend time, and I go with them in the middle of the night. I don't go up there like some people, they just go visit the border for a few hours and they think they know the border, that some of us live all the time. But if you talk to them, they need cameras, they need river roads. What they need also is an issue that's happening. Have you asked the Homeland Secretary this question? Did you know that Border Patrol is actually losing more men and women than they're hiring? At one time, we were 21,500. Right now, Border Patrol has 18,500, which means that they're losing more people than they're actually hiring. And those are the issues that we need to look at.
Any comments around on chain migration?
So I want to take another stab at this approach. I'm Michelle Lujan Grisham. I'm the chair of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. Si se puede. We have a meeting. We have a lot of energy led by this president to do something now. I mentioned that we needed to do it by January 19th because individuals lose status. That means we're narrowing the window for negotiations. We're being very clear that there are several things that the president has always wanted, even before being president. I have no doubt that those will continue to be items that this White House will put forward. But if the 19th now, there's more agreement that we as members of Congress can deliver something to this White House, and the president said he would sign it, then that tells me that we can deal with potential poison pills and other issues, and leave comprehensive immigration reform for another day. So I'm encouraged and am ready to do that work, and we reiterated that Democrats and the Congressional Hispanic Caucus have been negotiating on significant border security measures that would include smart technology to give our Republican colleagues as much factual information about what protects dreamers, what's the right thing to do for this country, and how to approach issues that most members of Congress would like to see addressed at the border. Thank you.
How do you negotiate when there's no agreement on what people mean by a wall? I mean, you're saying that the president really is not talking about a physical 3D border wall, but more like fencing and stuff.
I'm going to defer to the senator, but the reality is that's why we're meeting again as early as tomorrow.
So look, I think that what I walked away from this meeting is that I think the president actually wants to strike a deal. Now, whether that deal is strikeable is another question, but I think it's possible. First of all, I think he gets, or at least we made the point, that 15,000 Dreamers have already lost their protections, 1,000 a week, 800,000 at stake. These are young people who came to this country through no choice of their own. The only flag they pledge allegiance to is that of the United States. The only national anthem they know is the Star-Spangled Banner. They are American in every respect but for birthright. And so I think there is a real burning need to try to get this done, and I think that was impressed upon the president. Definitions are important. As someone who has been at immigration reform for 26 years in Congress, definitions are important. So when you talk about chain migration, which for me is family reunification, the question is to what limits are you talking about? Maybe you can strike a deal. When you talk about border enforcement, whether they be physical or otherwise, the question is what exactly are we talking about and how much money? And when you're talking about a diversity lottery, are you going to use the visas there, for example, for TPS? So there are many ways to find a common ground of people of good faith want to do so. And I think that the urgency of now, certainly for the Hispanic community, of which it's not uniquely Dreamers are not just Hispanic, but overwhelmingly they are. This and immigration reform in general is a civil rights issue of our time. And so I think there is an opportunity, and when there are deadlines, people are moved to act versus when you just have an open-ended process. So I'm looking for January 19th to be the deadline.
What are the chances for Senator Durbin, perhaps, for the Dreamers? What are the chances for a clean bill for the Dreamers? Is that even possible, or are we just beyond that point?
I think what I would say is that